Oh, I see. So this flips through them.
Yes. And feel free to go as fast or as slow as you want if you want to expand upon it, or if you just want to say like I see this.
Okay.
Take any method that you would like. And are you okay with flashing lights? Is that
Yeah.
fine? Okay.
Yeah.
Just to be sure.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. Whenever you're ready.
Actually, I don't think I've ever taken a Rorschach test.
Never?
No, I don't think so. Maybe as a kid, but if I did, I don't remember. Let's see. Wow. Two beetles facing each other. A moth. The underside of a boat. An owl. An African mask. Two letters A. A culvert. An eagle. A crest. An eagle crest. A landscape with flowers in the foreground and trees in the backyard, and then a trellis in the middle. Two figures facing each other. Close-up of a bird's face with a beak. A beam of light in the center. A typical 1970s tie-dye. A church organ with two bunnies on the left and the right. A reception room with a chandelier and figures in the foreground. Whoa.
That's the first time that's happened.
Okay, that's the key that's stumping me.
Sorry about that.
That's okay.
But we have backups. It was kind of odd because it happened right as
I know, the one that was sort of stumping me.
Yeah. Do you see anything here? We can move on to the next round if you'd like.
Yeah, I'm not really getting anything of it.
Yeah.
Maybe a floor plan, but I'm not too definite on it.
Yeah. Silas, if you want to switch it over, we can move on to the next round. These are also just ink blots. They're more so, well, at least in the ink blot style. They're more so, they have a bit more grayscale to them. They're produced in a little bit of a different way. So
That's weird. They're like not centered.
Yeah, this one is slightly off.
Yeah, I see that. I think like a underwater sea creature, like a skate, I think they call them. And that's weird. A couple of them have those stripes going across them. The only one that doesn't is the one on the right.
That one happens to be like one of the darkest in tone.
Yeah, right. I think brushstrokes. Definitely the entrance to a tunnel. Stage set for an opera. A 1920s ballroom scene with a chandelier. Waves at night. Oh, someone sitting on a throne. A large church nave. An upward shot of a Gaudi steeple. So let's see.
Is that legible to you?
What's that?
Is that legible?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But yeah, so the TVs and like all the live work that you just saw was all Silas, and then the first two sets of like ink blots and Rorschach tests, those were
Okay.
actually like Polaroid photos that were taken and dissected.
Okay.
And then also paintings, so that
Mm-hmm.
why after you've seen all the brush strokes.
Mm.
But yeah, me and Silas are gonna go outside,
Okay.
and feel free to explore.
And then when I'm ready, just go to the next slide. And it's
Yes.
like, okay.
Yeah.
And then how I'll know when it's actually done? It'll just like repeat again, or?
There should be around 35 questions when the slides. So if you feel like you've gone on long enough,
Okay.
then that's totally fine. But yeah, it should be about 30 or 40
Okay.
questions through. So if you feel like you've gone that far,
Okay.
then yeah. But yeah.
Okay.
Enjoy.
All right. Thanks. Okay. Okay. What world do you live in? Well, I think I kind of interpret world as immediate sort of surroundings or community. It's not really international. I think it's like regional. And I think I kind of connect and align myself most closely with the cultural community, the cultural world, which is kind of a insular segment, right? I think it's kind of, in a way, kind of rarefied because I'm surrounded by art and culture and like-minded people who appreciate it, make it, collect it, deal with it in some way in galleries or cultural institutions. So I would say the world is, again, surrounded, it's cultural, it's a kind of a cultural sensibility or existence, because I can think of other segments of the community that I have no knowledge of or interest in, So, yeah, I think I live in the world of art and creativity and of validation that that's something that's important when you can immerse yourself in. Yeah, it's interesting. Who cares? That is it's a really narrow window, right? I think that is part of the population, the segment who actually, people, well, I think, it's a relative question because who cares? I think everybody cares, but they care what's of interest to them, right? And I think it sort of is what's close to home, what's important to them, what impacts their lives, and I think it's really kind of limited. I mean, something that's real important and people care greatly about in today's world can change so quickly, and what becomes a major concern and something that people care a heck of a lot about can easily become forgotten and not a concern at all. When did it happen? I think it makes me think of significant dates in my life, things that I remember. The year of 1999 when my mother died, 1977 when my father died. He was 44. There were 10 of us still at home. I think about 2020 when I got an honorary doctorate from Niagara University. So I guess I'm ascribing the meaning to that of something that was a significant event that sort of like changed. When I left my career at the Birchfield Penny as a curator in 2005, it kind of opened up my world to be involved with more than just one institution, but in a more much broader sense, and also to be an independent curator, which didn't tie me to one institution. So that was kind of a seminal sort of time in my life. My first exhibition in a museum, which was in 2014. I think it was 2011. See, now I should know that date, but I guess I don't. Turning 50, turning 60, those are milestones, I guess. Losing 2 siblings when they both passed away, and we went from a family of 11 to 9. I guess significant moments. What do you like about then? What do you like about them? What do you like about them? For me, them refers to, and again, just to give myself kind of a framework, refers to artwork and work that I really admire, the skill and the idea that the artist has imbued in it. When it refers to people, I really like people that are thoughtful and considerate, and you'll talk to somebody and they talk about themselves and at length, and you realize at the end of the conversation they never actually engaged you and asked you anything about how you were doing or what. So I think that I guess them, if it refers to people, would be people that are considerate and thoughtful and less concerned about their own well-being as opposed to others, and uplifting others or showing concern. Did you get there in time? Just generally makes me think about that I'm not exactly the best person for being to someplace on time. I always tend to get myself not enough time to get ready, and invariably it's because I take a shower and figure out I could take a shower in 8 minutes, and it's really 10 or 12, and then you're a couple minutes late. If it's a volunteer responsibility, I think that gives me latitude to actually be late. Yeah, I'm always getting it too close. I mean, that's kind of a specific application of that question. Why did you say yes? Interesting. A mentor that I had, someone I worked under, was Tony Bannon at the Birchfield Penny Arts Center. And one of his pieces of advice to me was to always say yes, as career advice, right? So if somebody asks you to do a talk, or, I was asked to participate in this today, right? And if you say no, you can always say yes later on. I'm sorry, if you say no, you cut off that possibility of saying no. If you say no, you cut off that possibility of changing your mind or doing something, If you say yes, you can change your mind and maybe something comes up and you're able to cancel or whatever. But seeing everything that you're asked to do or invited to do as an opportunity and something that will benefit you, add to the value of your life in some way, whether it be a career opportunity or just something personal, or to stop yourself from not having that barrier of like, oh, I don't have time for that. I really don't want to take that on. The world needs people that will say yes, because, and oftentimes it's enabling somebody else's vision. I saw, and it's an open opportunity to do a shoot with Spencer Tunick. It was a nude photo shoot, and I was interviewed by the News about why I chose to participate in it. And I said, well, the artist, an artist works in paint or in sculpture, and so they need those materials, right? This person uses human bodies, right? Nude human bodies to create an installation. And so he needs people to participate and to say yes and be part of it to realize his vision. So I think, in a way it's a service to somebody else, but invariably, that experience gave me, all kinds of interesting stories and perspectives that, have stuck with me for years since that happened. Were you there for them? Were you there for them? Yeah, I would say, I think about that as empathy. Well, it's a mixed response. There were occasions that I wasn't, right? And I'm acutely aware of that and still feel kind of guilty and bad about that. One particular story was Charles Wren Penny. He was a friend, he was a collector, and when he was in the later years, when he became ill and was in the hospital, and I never actually really visited him. And I think he probably would have appreciated that, but it was a little bit too personal, it was a little bit too close of having been with my mom and kind of, witnessing her declining health and, the kind of not depression, but that sort of like, the negativity of that experience, maybe I think colored, that. What I will say is that, a good friend of mine, Rita Auerbach, is 90 years old, and, she needs help, she needs, someone to take her places periodically, someone to be in touch, and I absolutely am there for her, right? And so, and that's something I aspire to. That's something that I consider to be an important personal an aspect of someone's personality, if that you are available and considerate and thoughtful, particularly when somebody's going through something very difficult. Why did you do it? It makes me think of, I'm often asked this question about like, why do I collect? why do I share my collection? Why do I show my collection? And I mean, the answer for me is that because that's something that is a benefit to the artist, it's a benefit to the people who see the exhibitions, to see the artwork, and yeah, and I think the why again makes me think about whether thinking broader in terms of how it will affect other people. It's also a lot of personal satisfaction too. I mean, if maybe there's selfish reasons like why did I do it? It's nice to kind of have an identity, and I think we all seek to have an identity and a purpose. And I think maybe that I see that as my purpose, and so it kind of gives meaning to what I do, right? And what I enjoy, get satisfaction out of. Am I okay? Actually, I think I really am. I mean, there are a lot of times I just think like, I'm really fortunate. I retired a year and a half ago, and I have financial stability, and I have a network of friends, colleagues, people who are interested in what I'm doing, people who support me. I have a large family. I feel like I have kind of a modicum of stressors in my life. And again, I just feel really fortunate, I mean, there's certain things that you have to have. You have to have financial means, you have to have a car, you have to have a home, you have to have a social network, you have to have activities that you enjoy doing. Yeah, sometimes I would just think I'm really lucky, and am happy and don't feel angry or feel tension, right? I mean, I think I've, over the last almost a decade and a half, I've sort of reduced things that would cause stressors or stress, I should say. What did you offer? I think think about like what did I offer? It's like what do I have to offer? Like what skills and abilities and knowledge do I have? And that's something that I feel like I can offer that. I can give that. That doesn't cost anything. And again, when it's received and appreciated on the other end. Yeah, offering is giving, is yeah, that's what I think of. Who are they? Who are they? I think that they are all the other people in my life from different perspectives. And I think all those different people know a different segment of me. If you think about it, you go on in life, and if you can remember somebody that you went to grade school with, right? I mean, they know you from a specific point in time. And you may not have been in touch with them at all, or, like grade school or high school, right? It makes me think of something I was told once, and that is that relationships fall into three categories. They're either for a reason, or a season, or a lifetime. And the reason might be someone's going through a hard time, and you are too at the same time, or you're important to them for a particular period of time. A season, may be, let's say, during grad school, or during high school, right? You're friends with those people for a season, and that has a limited time frame, right? 4 years, whatever it be, 2 years. And then a lifetime. I mean, those are people, let's say family, that you've known and they know you since you were born, right? And they will continue to have a relationship with them. And all those people know a segment about you or a perspective about you, and maybe nothing. The two may not even overlap, from someone that's a colleague of mine in the art community to a family member. There virtually maybe no overlap, in terms of how they would interact with you or how they know you. Are you sorry for what you did? I think that if there's anything that you have that is a regret, or you look back and you wish maybe that wouldn't have happened, I think over time, it's putting those things in perspective of who you were at the time when it happened, and maybe I think when you look at things in the rearview mirror, time actually helps to put something in perspective, right? And sorry, regret. I think if there's something in your past, you have to kind of leave it there. It happened in a time and a place, and you were a different person whenever that, whatever happened. I think it's important to always kind of acknowledge that. And the best scenario is that, when confronted with a similar situation like that you don't repeat. Maybe if you were young and, kind of immature at the time. Is this it? It makes me feel about like the afterlife. Is this, maybe meaning our existence in our world now, right? I don't think you can ever really know, right? Certainly you're not going to find out until after you die. But I had an experience. I was in a cloistered monastery studying to be a Franciscan friar, to be a monk essentially. That was a part of my spiritual life. That was a part of, my Catholic upbringing. And so I don't really think an awful lot about if there is going to be an afterlife, or if, what we're doing now will be rewarded for later. I do believe in sort of like good karma and doing the right thing, right? And then the benefit of doing that. If you help, another advice someone or I read somewhere is that to get what you want, help others get what they want, right? And so, again, I think that reward and that experience is something that we're going to gain and we're going to get because, again, you don't really know whether there's a life after. What do you see? It's interesting because I think as an artist and as a creative person, there's a certain appreciation visually that a person in the creative arts has that I think the average person doesn't. That may be, you see a sunset or like an incredible cloud formation or something, and somehow it's notable to you. You pay attention. Or, I sit in my backyard at night, and I look up and I see the black walnut, the leaves of the black walnut tree, two huge black walnuts on both sides of my yard. And I look up, and just because you're just in the moment and you're there, and it's at night, and you're just really no other distraction. It's just basically you and out there in nature, in the middle of the city, but this incredible canopy of trees. And I noticed that you really can't see the thin branches that separate the leaves. There's a segment of leaves attached to a thin stem. And because it's so thin at that distance, that I'm sitting from maybe, 20 feet above me, you can't see it. They all seem just like little forms, the leaves. And it made me think of a Birchfield painting where he doesn't paint, it's just the leaves. It's not, the stems that attach them all. They're just these shapes. And so I think, again, being someone has a visual acuity or is visually geared, I think that makes you look at the world differently. You notice patterns or colors or odd sort of, things. Yesterday was at the George Eastman House in Rochester. They had a show about a town down in the South that they had segregated proms. So high school, and they had a black prom and a white prom. And until like 2011, and then they had a combined prom after it became like an issue in the press. And so then I went at the museum there. They've got I went to the bathrooms, and in the bathrooms are pictures of weddings that have been taken place on the grounds there, the gardens around the Eastman House, and they're all white couples, right? And so there's this exhibition about this segregated proms. Then you go in the bathrooms, and it's like two white couples, and straight couples too, really. And then I think the one that peaked in the women's room, and I think there was someone that was a mixed couple. One, I think the man was Hispanic, but anyway, it was the irony and the oddness of that, that you just maybe notice, that maybe someone else wouldn't even occur to them that was like ironic. What do you like about it? I think, it's interesting. I gravitate toward simplicity. When I was in the seminary, one of the things with the Franciscan espoused the notion of, through St. Francis, of simple joys, right? And because of that, I don't go out to dinner, I don't have a lot of fancy foods or, do a lot of, and so literally, just, a candy bar or a baked good, is a treat, right? And so I think whereas if you had that all the time, that wouldn't be special, right? If everything is special or everything is, it dilutes the experience, right? And so, those sorts, living simply and experiencing, and reserving those kinds of things for special occasion, whatever, makes it more special, right? And I think, that's, I don't know, I often just think about that as being like, why would that be, why would that be important? And it's because you give it importance. Did you do a good job? I think job kind of takes me to the obviously to the notion of professional life or career, and whether I'm as effective, whether I'm good at what I do, and I think I really am. I think that's something that I'm proud of excelling. I mean, it's interesting because look at, did you do a good job? Well, in school, what were your grades? What was your GPA? I was second in my class in high school. 4.0 in undergraduate, and have received awards for some of my career work, and have won awards for my, so it's always some kind of other outside entity kind of validating and saying, you're at this level, right? But I think what it comes down to is personal satisfaction. If you feel like, I'm not a kind of person who can necessarily compromise or settle for something less, less than as perfect as you can achieve, I guess. But, kind of a attention to detail and excellence, and, that's what makes me think about it. Are you different? I think right now, it makes me think of, being at a particular age where you get to be an age and your options, and this isn't a bad thing, your options narrow, right? You're younger, all kinds of possibilities are, out there. You could be this, you could be that, you could pursue. If you're talented in a number of different areas, you could pursue this, you could pursue that, right? My undergraduate degree was in psychology, and I was, at the top of my class and was encouraged to go on for my master's, but I didn't really feel the enthusiasm that my professors had, and so I didn't. I went in the direction of art and design and got a second degree in that. So at a certain point, you become more focused, right? And I think you get older, and I think you also take a broader view of life. Time is compressed, right? I mean, when you're, very, very young, a year, if you think about it, say you're 10, right, 10 years old, a year is 10% of your life, okay? When you're 50, a year is, again, do the math, it's a much smaller percentage of your life. It just seems like, time just sort of almost speeds up, right? It's like, oh, is it time to take the winter clothes out again? Is it time to, start doing the garden stuff in the back? It just seems that it happens quicker. The other thing too, I think, after a while you do so many things, right? And then what you want to do maybe becomes more narrower, right? Because you have done those experiences, you have done, experienced musical theater, traveled, right? And so, again, I think maybe your needs become less and you become more focused, I guess, as you get older. What's the point? That's a really interesting question because, while we're alive, people are very passionate about whatever they're passionate about. It makes me think of Charles Rand Penny. He was a collector, and he accumulated over 100 different individual collections in his whole life, gave some of those collection institutions, and he had a relationship with the Memorial Art Gallery in Rochester and gave a number of things, actually a large number of artworks by prints and things by international artists. And it became part of their collection, and now it, obviously there's a credit line. And, he didn't have family, he didn't have children, didn't have a spouse. And so, he's gone. He passed away in 2010. And, no one really mentions his name anymore. I think someone might be pressed to say the Birchfield Penny is named after Charles Rand Penny. And so I think, it's important for when the time that we're alive, and whether there's people who know and there's a memory. I don't know. That's because I think what it's making a difference. It's making an impact, and it has a point when it's in the present, but those things aren't infinite. Why do you think the way that you do? Why do you think? Why do you think the way that you do? I think as you go on in life, you have to develop your own values and code of ethics. And that's going to affect how you think, right? What your perspective on something is, whether you're more liberal or more conservative, whether you have a strong opinion about something, whether you're sort of like, just let things kind of go. And I think those are guided by what you feel is important, right? And you'd like to think that it's like, well, I wish everybody would do what I would do. Like, I wouldn't do that if I were you. Or if I were you, I wouldn't do that. Which is really sort of a nonsensical statement, because they're only going to do what they're going to do for what they would do, right? Again, and then making those decisions, what you do, is a direct relationship to what you think, what you think is appropriate or right. Who are you? That is a question that has multiple answers depending on perspective, right? To who am I? Who am I? I think who I think I am is a lot, in many ways, sort of structured by how other people would identify me. I'm an artist, someone who creates work. I'm a collector, someone who collects work. I'm an independent curator, someone who organizes exhibitions of artwork. I'm somebody's brother. So the interesting thing is an artist who passed away quite some time ago said that as time goes on, the world becomes smaller, and it becomes populated by those who never knew you and never loved you. And so I think, as a single man with no children, there's certain roles, like I'm a brother, right? Currently, I'm a son, but my parents aren't living, so I'm somebody's son, historically. I'm someone's grandson, but my grandparents aren't alive anymore. I'm nobody's father. There are certain things, I think, when someone does get married and have children, that, that arm of, then they're a husband, they're a father, they're a grandfather. So those relationships kind of grow on that one end, as opposed to your ancestors, right, which actually kind of reduce after a while as those people pass away. So, but as president, I'm a brother, I'm a nephew, I'm a godfather, So I think in terms of like labels, right? When you say, who are you? What would you like? I think I would like to have like continued health. I think you see so many people's lives that are cut short, because of illness, or disease, or people I've got, friends now whose partners or people are dealing with Parkinson's, or older people who I know are dealing with dementia in some cases, disability, old age, and so I think I would just like to have physical capabilities and health, right? I think that would that's kind of an ambiguous, because material possessions and all of that. In terms of happiness, those things are temporal, but I'd like to have, I guess, because that all ties in with like quality of life, I think, and having security, both physical and emotional and mental, I suppose. Are you pissed? Oh, is that it?
Yeah.
You're in
a moment?
Oh no, I'm at the one that says, "Are you pissed?"
Are you pissed?
Yeah. Oh, but you got a schedule.
Yeah, we got somebody else coming in.
You do. Okay. No,
But,
that's all right. Is that toward the end? That one?
Yeah, it is.